Alrighty, so it's time. It's time to recap. We've finished the front, all prep. We've finished the back, all prep. Now we're on to the sides. So I took the liberty of preparing one earlier. It's pretty daunting when you've got a perfectly good kit and you're cutting into it. So so there you go. So as I've said, I'll recap what I've done. What I did was mark the outside. Hopefully you can see that. I marked the outside, okay? And I've left a little bit of foreplay there, a bit of sexy play. So I've got something to rest the spoiler on, so or the flare, so I can when I glue it into place, I can glue it both sides, and there's a little bit of give there. So that's looking really good. So the next stage is to figure out the angle down here. This one probably won't change too much. This one will be a bit more radical, so I haven't quite worked out that angle yet. So I'm going to crack on with that now, and then I'll come back to you when I've worked out how I'm going to do that. And then I will show you exactly how I cut these out. I just thought I'd work it out myself first, to make sure I'm on point. I don't want to mislead you. So it's looking really good. It's yeah, looking schmicko. So I'll crack on. So after stuffing around with it for a while, this is this is obviously a critical part of the build, right? So you got to take your time when you're doing this. So the old saying, measure twice, cut once. In this case, I think I've measured 20 times and cut once. So, but it's looking really good. I had to stuff around a little bit. So with the panel lines, the original panel lines, I just had to shave and taper them off just inside, so I could get them absolutely schmicko. And a little hot tip, if you're actually going to build this, right, is when you think you've got it right, hold it down, put it up in the light, and if you see any air, any gaps, then you need to go back and address it, because obviously, I want it sitting as close to the body as possible. Yeah, I know you could just say, I'll just fill it with a bit of 2-component putty, but this has got to be right, because as I've said in previous episodes, I'm taking this to the state model championships, and they'll be all over that. As soon as they look at that model, right, the first thing they're going to look at is the color, and the second thing they're going to go straight to is the flares, and they're going to look, and I guarantee you they'll look, and if they're not spot on, it could be the difference between a yay or an A, right? So moral of that long-winded story is take your time, measure twice, cut once, and you should get a good outcome. I haven't taken these bits off just yet. I've just left them because I figure I can sort of get to that down here. As far as, it's a bit hard to see, as far as inside, I can clean that up a little bit and get a little bit closer to the flare. I'm not going to do that just at the moment. I'll probably obviously let that dry, because if I just put the CA glue in, and the glue that I use is Icky Sticky Medium CA, okay? They're a sponsor of mine, and they supply me with, sort of disclosure, they supply me with all my glues. Really, really good product. I've been using their products for years, even before they came on board as a sponsor of mine. I shouldn't say sponsor, we're more partners these days because they really look after me, and so I like to give them a shout out where I can. And if you guys pop over to their website, check them out. It's available at all good hobby stores. I'm just not sure about the overseas hobby stores. I don't know, because this is Australian based family run business who supply this to the Australian market. So not sure if they supply it overseas, but you can get it online. Yeah, so it's really, really good product. And this is another interesting product, and I'm not sponsored by them, and I'll give them a bit of a crack, right? I love this. This is the DSPIA super glue applicator. I've actually done a review on this. It really kicks in to its own when you're doing a job like this, because you can get up into the base super easy, right? You get your glue on target first time every time. Great product. I will leave a card somewhere up here and it will take you to the review I've done on this thing, because it's really good. So the combination of the two, yeah, it just makes life a little bit easier. So now we've got that out the way, I will let that completely dry before I start on the other ones, because look how far out it comes, right? And what you don't want to do is stick it on and go around the other side, and then that super glue hasn't quite cured, and you bump it off and you're left with a horrible, disgusting line inside. So I've got to resist cracking on and getting stuck into this model. I've got to pause and let the product do its job, and but it's looking really good. Once it's dry, I'll make up the 2-component putty, and I'll show you how I do that as well. Of course, I'll show you how I do that. So I've ended up putting the second one on. We'll show you in a second that one, but this one, this one's come up really, really nice. Now, I worked out how to do these. What I did was, I'm glad I did this. That's the outer floor assembly. Okay, so what I did, I put it, hopefully you guys can see this, I put it in there and there, and you can't get rid of that bottom edge or you're going to have issues with the floor. So I'm glad I measured twice, cut once, right? And so the bottom of that has to stay, and then the bottom of that has to stay. So what I did, I sort of worked, I put these both on, and then I worked back up straight, so that, it's got a slight curve there. It's the same on the other side. So the other side's on. All right. So, and I took measurements, right? I sort of went from, with my trusty ruler, right? From my friends at Icky Sticky, of course. So if you measure that, it should end up on that as a rule, and it does, right? And same on the other side, right? As it does, all right? So there's a little bit involved in it, but all in all, take your time. You can do it. So what's really left? Obviously, I haven't puttied that yet, and I was going to show you how I remove the plastic. So I might do that right now. We might have a look at this one. I haven't put any I've just said that. I haven't put any putty in yet. I'm probably going to do that last. So let's have a look. This is my setup, right? I showed you in other episodes my little tool. Love this thing. It's just so good. So what I do, get it on 3 and rip into it. So all these little tool attachments I showed you, they all come with this kit, so you don't need to race out and buy anything extra. And this rough, it feels like a 36 grit. That's going to last and I've got spares that came with the kit. That's going to last forever. Now, little tip. Let me just grab my little pointer, my trusty pointer. That is let's get in the right spot for you. That's the outside edge of the flare. Remember I said before you need to leave yourself a little bit of wriggle room, a little bit of sexy play, right? That's important. So what I've done is I rip it down to about that line there, about that point there, as you can see, all the way around, and then I leave it. And then I fit the flare, glue it up, let it rest, let it dry. And then I come through later with the tool, and I buzz it back carefully. And while I'm buzzing it back, it also puts a chafer on the inside. Hey, you know when you on rail cars when they lower them down and the tires rub the inside of the panels, yeah. And so what they do, if it's done professionally, right, they fold up the lip professionally up on the inside, and that sort of so the tires don't rub. What I'm doing is predominantly the same thing, right, but with no lip. I'm just putting an edge on it, all right, all the way around both sides, because I haven't done the wheels yet. Okay, I haven't done the undercarriage yet, so I won't be doing any final bits on this until I've made that up, because I mean, you know, I need to make sure that the wheels are going to clear 100%, right? I just can't go on maths alone. I need actual, but it shouldn't be a problem. But you know, famous last words, right? So I'm calling these two for the time being completed. So I've took the liberty of putting a putty in all the other ones, which is really good. And I'll go into a little bit of detail in a minute. But how I do it, right, is I don't know if it's going to come out. And I've got rid of my black board, display board for the camera. So, because this stuff's a little bit messy, particularly the way I do it, right? Break a little bit off, and you need it. You've got to need it for 7 minutes. So I didn't bother showing you that because you don't want to listen to me waffle on for 7 minutes. So what I do is I just make it into a little skinny little thing like that, and then I just get it on there. Hopefully this will come out. So grab your toothpick. Sort of, don't worry if it's not too neat, because I'll show you how I neaten it up in a minute. This stuff dries, there you go. This stuff dries rock hard, right? So the purpose of this right now is just to seal the gap and make sure it doesn't crack, all right? We'll be doing some other things to it. Then I grab cotton wool bud, right? One of the hobby ones. You need the hobby ones which have got the really stiff shaft on them, and the buds are, and I just dab a little bit of water in, all right? This is where it gets a little messy, and hopefully you guys can see that. And then I just work my way around, all right? A little bit of water, won't hurt it. I believe this stuff can cure underwater as well, apparently, from what I hear. So you got plenty of time to work with. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to really kick in and go off and do its magic. So you don't need to rush the process. So I just get it in there, and as you can see, it looks nice and neat. All right, so now when I get up to this stage, up in these, let me get some light on the subject for you. When I get up into here, I can just get my toothpick, and I took a big chunk out, because you actually don't need that, right? So I just discard that. All right, and then dab a little water, and then I'm back into it again, and you'll see the finished result in a second. But like I said, this stage is probably messy. All right, then I just grab your trusty trusty rag or cloth or whatever you want to call it. And I just wipe it down and there, job's done. Now, if I feel that, I can feel a slight lip. I'm not concerned by that moment. The purpose of me doing this stage with the 2-component putty, right, is to, like I said before, to stop it from cracking, all right, and it won't shrink. So I'm probably going to finish with the dissolved putty over the top, and that'll give me a lot more sort of wriggle room to play with it and get it smooth. Because if you sort of look at this side's got a slight lip. Now, yeah, I could build it up a little bit with the 2-component, but the more you put in, the more you got to rub, right? And this stuff dries like concrete. So, like I've said, the purpose of putting the 2-component putty in is to literally stop it from cracking between the two pieces, between the 3D printed and the plastic. All right, so like I said, I just feel a little lip there, but we'll get that with the dissolved putty, and we'll make it one. So that's my technique. I don't know any other way of doing it. Well, I do, but I choose to do it this way. So now I've just got to work my way around the rest of it. So I'll crack on with that, then I'll come back and show you the finished result. Right, I've gone back to my my display base. As you can see, I've got all the putty in, right? The 2-component. All right, so a couple of takeaways from the 2-component, which I'll just... The milliput, all right? This stuff is really good. Like I said, it dries like concrete and it's really easy to work with. The tools to do the job that I use is obviously the milliput. I use the cotton wool bud, as I mentioned before, toothpick and a little thing of water, all right, and a rag and a knife. You know, I use my sacrificial. You see me talk about my sacrificial blades. I use my sacrificial blades and just mix the putty 50-50 and knead it for 7 minutes. And, you know, when in doubt, read the instructions. It says to put gloves on, but oh my goodness, I couldn't do that with gloves on. It's too fiddly. So what's next? I've still got to clean up these edges. All right, I've took the liberty of off camera just to get in here and clean that up more. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm probably going to be a bit fussy and put maybe a little bit of dissolved putty in there just to neaten it up a little bit. I don't think you see it because the time you put your wheel on, I'll just grab a tyre. The time you put your tyre on, so these are the 3D printed tyres, right? The time that goes in there, you're probably not going to see it up under there. So it's more just for me being a bit fussy because I want to be. So that's where we're at. They're all on. Take your time when you're doing it. And critical parts, where's my pointer? Here's my famous pointer. Critical parts when I'm building this one was to get the toothpick in there and just dig out the excess around the molds, around the factory molds, all right? Because what you don't want to do, I believe you don't want to lose the contour of that. You want to try and keep that shape really nice. And that's where the earbuds or the hobby buds come in handy with a bit of water on there. You know, you push them in really hard and it just takes away the excess. If there is a build-up, like I said, just use your toothpick, rip it out. So as you can see, I've got it all neat, all right? And this stuff, like I've said, it gives you plenty of work time, so you're not under the pump. Don't make it up and go, oh my goodness, what's going on? I haven't got no time at all. I actually did these two last night and let them dry just to have a look at it. And I've just done these two now, and I've literally, as you know, I've just done one to show you. So that's it. So all I've got to do now is just clean up under here, like I've done down the back and that side. And I reckon we're almost there. But like I said, I've got two ideas. I can use a bit of my Humbrol model filler just to get in there Or the best option for me would be probably to use the liquid putty, because remember, when it comes to putty, the more you put on, the more you got to take out, right? So by that technique that I've done, it's actually done its purpose. It's filled up the little cavity. It won't crack. It won't shrink. And the stuff that goes on top, you know, there's not much left to shrink. So now, can you do that without the milli putty, this job? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. You could very much use model filler, right? And what I would suggest is get in the absolute minimum. Use your, where's my trusty, there it is, my trusty star. All right, I've just polished it up actually, because when I showed you last time, it was all full of bloody scratches and crap. So I've just hit it with some paper and cleaned it up, went up through the grades just to get it shiny. So if you were just using model filler that you've got, absolutely 100% you could use it. A lot cleaner than what I've just been doing. And you could just get it in there and just work your way, let it dry massively between coats, rip it back with your sandpaper and maybe put another coat on, or even finish with the dissolved putty. The dissolved putty, I think, is the answer when you want that really nice schmick finished. The only thing I don't like about this, but I use the super fine milli putt, which is white. Okay, now there is a Tamiya product which is a different colour. It's like yellow. Same thing, just yellow. And I would, because I've got a whole box of millipede and it's going to last me 400,000 years, I won't do it. But the yellow would be better, because the white, if you've got crap on the body and you can't see it, because it's white, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I will rub down the whole body before I put my first, what I call my sacrificial coat of primer on there. And that just gives me a bit of an indication of what's going on. So I'll show you that technique later. I just put a super fine primer on. I'm not looking for anything in regards to a build quality of primer. I just want to get it on there to sort of have a look and see what's going on and see what needs to be fixed. And then I'll go through and fix it all up. And then once all that's done, then I'll put my high build primer on, and then happy days, let that dry out, rub it back and paint it. And that's all she wrote. So that's it. Flares are on. Looking pretty good. I still haven't decided what I'm doing down here yet. I need to sort of decide, because I'm going to have to get to that section pretty soon. So I'm probably, if I do fill that in and get rid of that chrome strip, and or I keep the chrome strip and black it out, as I've said in previous, I will make up some milli putty and get that in there and make that rock hard. So, but all in all, it's coming together. It's you know, I wouldn't say that's putting the putty in there. I wouldn't say that's the best job. Anyway, I've waffled on enough, so we'll let that dry rock hard, and we'll crack on with the next stage. Right, so I've decided what putty I'm going to use to finish off. I'm using this one. It's just so good, right? So I've already got one coat on, but I'll show you how to use it, right? So let me get it open. I just use one of these, all right? We've spoken about them in the previous episodes. And this stuff is really good, right? I don't know if you could see it, but up in there, I'll grab my trusty pointer. Where are you? Where are you, pointer? Pointer. Here he is. Right. Up in there is a little pinhole, right? Oh, sorry. Up in there is a little pinhole. So this stuff is good for that, right? So just dab it on. Let me try and get myself in the right spot. And don't know if you guys can see that, but that's filled that little spot. And this stuff is really good. It's got a reasonable build on it. for a liquid putty, right? I think it's just really a primer, a thick primer really, with a bit of thinners in it. But that's how I do it. I just apply it on, and I tell you what, it's very fumey, this stuff. So I just apply it on, right? And she dries pretty good, but this stuff, there can be a little bit of shrinkage. So if you haven't done that step, like I've just done previously with the 2-component putty, just be prepared for a bit of shrinkage with this stuff. We shouldn't get too much with this, and that is looking, oh God, let me focus on it for you guys so you can see. Straighten up my camera. That's looking the goods. I'll just bring that. I don't know how well that's going to come out, but that looks, that's the second coat going on, and that rubs down beautiful, right? You don't need to go nuts over ripping it down with heavy grade sandpaper. And we'll just get up, sorry, I'm all over the place here. Sometimes it's little, hey, you know what I was saying in the corners, you got to, get your toothpick in there to get the 2-component putty out. Don't need to with this one because it's pretty thin, right? And as you can see by the previous coat. So I just give it a couple of coats, and then we'll let that dry until next time I get back on it. But yeah, I got to get back on to some customer builds, so we'll let this dry right out. See that? Just on she goes. And I took the liberty of putting a little bit on the inside before too. Look at that. Look how much neater that is. I don't know if that comes out in the camera, but we'll give that another crack. We'll load that up a little bit more, eh? So it's as simple as that. Great product, not sponsored. Get it online, Amazon, eBay, all those online places, or your favourite hobby store. Try and get it from your favourite hobby store if you can, because we've got to support those guys, right? But, when you live in areas where you don't have a hobby store like me, yeah, sometimes it's a bit hard to buy from your local hobby store when I don't have one. But I do try and buy from hobby stores in the big centres. Some of them look after me and give me a really reasonably good price. Some don't, but that's okay. It's all about support. And there you go. So look at that. And I haven't done the front ones yet because they're still curing, and we'll let them cure before we do the backs. But trust me, if you follow this technique for putting flares on, it works every time, and it's really neat, and it rubs down beautifully. And when you go to put the primer on, you can see how it's sunk back. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but it's sunk back a bit there. So, but we'll get that. Couple of coats on it, and rub back, because that's what we want to get rid of. I don't know if you noticed, I'll probably put a little bit more on the fronts, but there's still a lip on them as well. But steady. That's the name of the game. So there you go. That is how I put on the Mr. Dissolve Putty. Rightio. So where we're at. I took the liberty of giving it a couple of coats of high build primer. Look, it rubbed down okay. I just touched that when it was drying, silly me. The only thing I'm concerned about is the little lip. Don't worry about, I'll explain what the black is. The little lip here is kind of losing its form a little bit, and this one's not too bad, but I don't think there's much you can do about that. So there's a couple of things I can do. I can remove that lip altogether. I can just sort of leave it, and by the time the clear goes on, it'll be a little bump, right? But yeah, I'm doing my darndest to keep that shape. Right, so she's got a couple of coats of high build primer on there. That gives me an idea what's going on. I was going to put some thin primer on, but it rubbed down okay. There's a few little imperfections in the primer that I noticed when it was wet. So what's the black stuff, right? Well, what it is, what we call in the trade, it's called a guy coat, right? I went a bit nutso there. So, but that's okay because that little bump that we just spoke about, I want to try and preserve that. So the guy coat is on, and not too much because, you know, the more guy coat you put on, the more rubbing you're doing, right? You want to get down to the primer pretty quick. So that's pretty good. They're in like what I consider maybe the first round of primer. So we'll get that all wet rub back with a bit of 600 maybe, get that knocked back. And then we can have a look at it. If it looks really, really super good, then we'll call them done, and then I can get on to the next stage. So there you go. That's the wheel arch flares in high build primer. Starting to look good, right? All right. So I've started to rub this down with 600 wet, and remember I was telling you before about the guy coat, right? I put a little description because I didn't quite clarify that. The guy coat's good for picking up high and low spots and also tiny little pinholes and stuff like that. Remember when I was showing you when the pen mark on the tops, right? To get rid of the highs? Well, I thought I did, but check this out. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll bring in my camera. Look at that. See that black line there? All right. Look at that. That's a high spot. So I thought I actually rubbed it down and the guy coat has picked it up, right? So what that means is the guy coat, the little black guy coat is actually sitting on either side of the raised edge. Okay. So you can't really feel it, but it's there. And under a glossy 2K clear, you could probably just make that out, or maybe not. Maybe the clear and the base coat and the clear coat will probably have enough build to get rid of that. But that just gives you a demonstration of why a guy coat, especially doing these custom builds, right? I mean, if they're straightforward builds, you don't really need to go to this extent. But yeah, so there you go. So look at that. All right. Thought I'd share that with you. I'll crack on with rubbing this down. Oh, before I go, sandpaper. I use multiple different types. This one is a sanding pad, 600 by my friends at Icky Sticky. You've heard me talk about them many times. I use that. This is a real good product, wet and dry, and look them up on their website. It's a really good product, flexible, you know, what can I say? Fantastic. And they've got hard sticks as well, because you need a whole swag of different types of grades and different thicknesses and different strengths. You need all that in your arsenal for hobby building. So there you go. So I'll crack on with that. I won't bore you with that. Alrighty. So I've rubbed all the body down. Well, you know, first rub with 600 wet. And I've gone over the whole thing and it's looking pretty good. You know, there's always a little something, isn't there, when you're building models, right? But I'm just taking my time, just working on it, and it's starting to look good. Now, the guy coat did pick up a lot of things that I wasn't happy with. And also, you know, the couple of coats of high build primer that I put on, that's also kind of acting as a guide coat as well, particularly on the white, you know. So I found, hey, look at this, right? You know, when I was telling you previous about scribing, and sometimes, you know, when you're scribing, if you can run off the mark and you can do yourself a little bit of damage, right? Well, I did this down here and I thought I fixed it, but if you get in the light, I don't know if you can see it. Let me get my light. See that little black line? That's when I was scribing around here and she ran off. Do you remember what I said to you in previous, that there was a line that came up through there and there was like a little funny little bit? Anyway, there's a little funny little bit in the panel line. So listen to that. Sounds like a lawnmower. So what I've done, I need to fix that because that's showing as a little imperfection, and you know, it might fill up with a bit of primer and base coat and clear coat, but gee, sometimes they don't, right? And then you're left with this little tiny horrible mark. And yeah, so hey, while you're at this stage, why wouldn't you get rid of it? So it's looking good. Now I'll just show you quickly what else I use. Let me go into my drawer. Right, I also use these little sanding sticks, right? I get these from Mickey Sticky, right? They supply me with them. So they're good for getting up into little areas like this, right? You know, where you want to get rid of all in there and on the line. These flares have been look, then this particular type of flare has probably not been the easiest one because of the panel lines, right? So it's been a reasonably hard job, but you know, nothing's unachievable, right? You just got to take your time and work your way through. So I use little things like sticks to get into the groove and that sort of stuff. And I'll give you a little hot tip. Sometimes when you're rubbing down, the end of your tips can wear out pretty quick, and in the centers can be pretty good, right? I just go like this, all right? Okay, discard that, and then look at that. You got a nice, clean, abrasive edge, so you can get into your corners and have a little rub. Yeah. So I find using them, what it will do, it will clean up that bottom edge on this line, because it's obviously with this particular model, it's critical that we keep the shape of the moldings, that the steel moldings that come with the car, right? So, and that's been the most challenging part of this whole build so far, is retaining the integrity of these molds. So as I said before, this one here has been a little bit of a drama, and I am working on it, trying to get it back. I might have to maybe come down a little bit so I can match the two up so you don't notice, right? So, but apart from that, it's getting there. Right. As you can see, it's coming along quite nicely. I'll put some primer inside the air duct vents there. I've got to tidy it up with some Humbrol putty, and that's the beauty of, you know, having a bit of a crack with some primer. It gives you an idea, you know, that one needs to be filled and that one there, and there's a couple of little spots around, but all in all it's looking good. So it's got 2 coats of high build primer on the whole thing except the roof, and you might think, well gee, he's gonna end up with a lot of primer. I actually take most of it off in the preparation by rubbing it all down, finding the low spots, finding the high spots as well. So eventually it'll come right down. There won't be a lot of base primer on there. There'll be the ultra fine, you know, one-shot primer prior to colour going on. So it won't end up with a lot of primer on there. I still haven't decided, I'm procrastinating on, do I put the chrome or blackout mold down here? Let me know in the description below, in the comments below, what you reckon I should do, because I'm really not quite sure. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to cut the roof off. What could possibly go wrong, right? So I've got my trusty clippers, right? And what we're going to do, we'll start here. Gee, I don't think anyone's ever done this on YouTube before, have they? Show them how crazy they are by cutting the roof off. And we'll cut here and cut here. So, I don't know if you noticed, but hey, let's just get that bonnet off. But it did bend that a little bit, so you've got to be super careful cutting these, right? So we'll just around here. That one's cut, that one's cut. Right. Now, a little hot tip from me, because I'm always doing custom work. Where's Pointer? Pointer? There you are. When you're going to be cutting the roof off, right, and you're going to, like, remember what I said at this stage, I'm leaving this here, the windscreen pillar and the top, because I don't know what I'm doing yet do I fabricate a whole new windscreen, or or do I put the OEM one in there and leave it like that? So I don't know. Well, depends on the look. Give me your thoughts. Give me your comments below what you reckon I should do. But anyway, to cut there would be really, really dangerous because you could end up with a split running off there and there, right? So what I'll do, I'll cut it way back here, right? So I'll take the pressure off the back one first. Actually, I'll cut it in the middle. And then, all right. Well, there's no going back now, is there? So we'll just cut that there. I want to leave these ones in place just to keep, because I'm manhandling this thing a fair bit, just to keep it all relatively square. Like a real car, you cut the roof off a real car and then the whole thing goes a bit floppy, right? There's a lot of strength in the roof that goes towards the whole strength of the car. So now we've got that off, we're going to go. So I'm just going to cut a little bit higher, right? And we'll cut that sort of there, and there. Okay. Right. There she be. She's starting to look like a Fatboy Roadster now. So obviously it's best to cut a bit higher. Give yourself a little bit of foreplay, a little bit of sexy play, as I say, right? And what I mean by that is, it's easier to come down than to go up.